Hi, mums. Welcome to the Natural Dog Mum podcast. I'm Shira, your host, and Bear's mum. This week, we're going to be talking to our friend Kate Opitz from the Saltiest Dog in Melbourne. She is a former vet nurse and raw and fresh feeding advocate. She makes nutritionally balanced raw meals that you can feed straight out of the fridge to your dog, and she delivers all around Melbourne. We're also going to be talking more about things that you can do, simple little tricks that you can use to get started with raw feeding. We're also going to be talking about why a lot of vets don't talk to you about raw and fresh feeding. Stick around. Hey, so nice to see you. Thank you so much for coming on. Really excited to talk to you.
Yeah, me too. Thanks for having me.
Not a problem. So, you're all about all things raw and fresh and healthy feeding. I'm curious to hear a little bit about how you actually got started in the space.
I'm a vet nurse is my background, so I've always been in the, animal health space, but it was my dog Lulu's allergies that sort of got me into more of the fresh feeding side of things. As a young vet nurse, we were all pushed, dry foods, and it was Hills or Royal Canin. But when I got Lulu and she had really bad allergies, I actually was sort of introduced to that whole side of things by the receptionist I work with at the vet clinic, and she sort of mentioned some natural holistic ways to approach allergies, and I was kind of like, oh. And then it just kind of grew from there. So as I learned more about the natural way, it just made a lot of sense to me, and from then on I was a raw feeder through and through. And here we are.
Excellent. It's an interesting point that you raise. A lot of people don't realise that traditional vets and vet nurses as well don't really receive a whole lot of training in animal nutrition, do they?
Not specific, definitely not in fresh feeding. I guess more so like we would have most clinics are either like they're Royal Canin or they're Hills. It's kind of just always been that way. So we would have the Royal Canin or the Hills rep come around, and a lot of the education that we had around diet was which dry food or which Hills prescription diet is best for that. And in the clinic, you would have your little book, like we called it the Bible or whatever, and it was like the Royal Canin Bible. And you could sort of look up the conditions, whatever the animal was suffering from, and it would tell you which Royal Canin diet, for example, to feed that animal. Yeah, it is skewed towards kibble and dry food and that kind of thing and what they are most educated about. But I do think that more and more vets are at least opening their minds a little bit towards fresh feeding because it's become so popular. And let's face it, it makes a lot of sense.
Absolutely. A lot of people seem to think that vets and vet nurses know absolutely everything there is to know, and you guys know an awful lot. And I guess what I want to get across to people, you and I discussed this once before off camera, people need to think of their vets as a general practitioner. They're more or less the animal world's equivalent of your GP. They know a certain amount about a lot of different things. I mean, you've got to have a bit of a super brain to remember everything they have to know. But the nutrition side of thing is more of a specialty area. So, like for example, if you've got problems with your skin and you go to your GP, they're going to refer you to a dermatologist. Or if you want to get fit, you want to lose weight, they're going to refer you to a human nutritionist. It's similar with some of your vets out there, the ones that maybe haven't quite cottoned on yet, and they're not holistic vets or natural vets. It's the same sort of thing. I mean, their knowledge is limited because they've got to learn and they've got to know so many other things. So if you need advice on that level, you either find a vet or a vet nurse that has that extra training and that extra experience in raw or fresh, or you go and talk to an animal nutritionist. Something to remember, guys.
Yeah. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, look, a lot of owners out there have good results with some of the premium kibbles that are recommended by the vets, and that's great. But there's a lot of others out there, like yourself, where it's the symptoms just aren't going away. It's not doing the trick. They need nutrition on a whole other level, and that's where the fresh comes in. Can you maybe talk us through a little bit more about the kinds of problems or the kinds of symptoms you were seeing with Lulu and how you started introducing fresh into her diet and what that did for her?
Yeah, absolutely. Lulu was a classic allergy dog. She got inflamed ears, inflamed
Mm.
paws, inflamed down her chest. And it was always at sort of varying degrees. And I knew that she had skin issues when I adopted her, and it was kind of like, as a vet nurse, I was kind of like, oh, do I want to go down this road? Because I knew how complicated allergies were to manage. And to be honest, like I never fully got on top of it. Like I don't think that you just feed fresh, you fix a dog's allergies.
No.
I think there are so many complicating factors, and I always say this to people, like there isn't a food that will fix your dog's allergies because it could depend on what your dog is allergic to. Like you have food allergies, you have environmental allergies, or you have both. And I believe Lulu had both, but probably environmental allergies were worse. So it was sort of just about feeding her a really good diet, but also trying to manage those allergies topically as best you can. And often with skin allergies, that is the best you're going to do. And there are so many different products out there. I tried everything with Lulu, and some work really well for some dogs and not so much for other dogs. So I always say to people, keep trying different things, feed a really good diet, try to manage it topically as best you can. And unfortunately, like often Lulu had to be medicated. I'm not against medication. Like her allergies were so bad that sometimes she would get oral hematomas in her ears, like they would fill up with blood, and she'd have surgery. There
You've
is a
got no
time.
choice in that case.
Yeah, like you can't just feed them a fresh food diet and everything is fixed. There are times when you need to
No.
go to the vet. You need to be on steroids or all kinds of things, and yeah, I think feeding a fresh food diet supports their immune system and equips them better to be able to deal with whatever allergies and things they're facing. But it's not necessarily going to fix them. I mean, for some dogs, it might. It will definitely improve their skin barrier function and things like that when they're getting omega-3s and all that good stuff in their diet. So, yeah, it's kind of just like supporting them, I guess, to manage the allergies.
Absolutely. I mean, it can certainly help to lengthen the time in between flare ups or triggers. It can certainly help reduce the reactivity, but it's not necessarily a cure all, but
Yeah.
certainly important, as you said, because it keeps their immune system nice and strong, which helps to reduce the chances that their body is going to react. And when they do react, sometimes if they're going well, you will find that the reaction is either not as severe or perhaps resolves a little bit faster. But in absolute extreme cases where the dog is absolutely miserable, scratching and biting themselves, when they're in pain and their quality of life is just zero, sometimes it's just what you need to do. But the thing I try and advise people is certainly the fresh food diet is going to make that a little bit easier on the body, on their tummy, but there are other things that you can do to support them while they're on the medication. Besides the diet, obviously things like probiotics. I suggest for a lot of dogs that have no choice but to be medicated, looking at liver and kidney supports as well, just to help their body work through all the
Yeah.
all the toxins so they're not getting a build up in their system. But yeah, unfortunately, it sounds like poor Lulu was a little bit unlucky and was just one of those dogs that needed a combination of different things to try and manage her condition.
Yeah, she had a lot of allergies, and a lot of them were environmental. And there are with environmental allergies, there are things you cannot control. And so I did get
Yeah,
to a point where I was like, I'm never going to fix this. It's just, I told her she needed
yeah,
to be a dog in a bubble. She just, I
yeah.
did my best, and we'd soak her paws and clean her ears and do all of that. And when she had bad flare ups, she would get medication. She was otherwise just happy and well. She was just an itchy girl.
Poor baby. So
Yeah.
that's obviously what made you start going into raw feeding, and what motivated you to start Saltiest Dog. So tell me a little bit about how you got started and what you've got on offer.
So yeah, the Saltiest Dog was born in Alice Springs. I used to live in Alice Springs in the middle of Australia, and it was kind of It started because there wasn't a lot in Alice Springs for dogs, and I sort of wanted all the nice things for Lulu. Even in terms, it started more as like treats and accessories and all that, cool dog stuff that you can get. And I used to just have a little market stall at the Todmore markets, and yeah, so that's how it began. And then I moved into a doggy daycare. I had their shop front, and we sort of started selling more food and making more food because my customers wanted the food that I was feeding Lulu. Like I would post stuff that I fed Lulu, and they'd be like, "Do you sell that?" And I was like, no, but I could. And it just grew from there. And I moved to Melbourne when I had my kids and restarted the business in 2020. And yeah, now we're a full food manufacturer. We've got a lot of things on offer.
And you do deliveries around Melbourne as well, don't you?
Yeah, we deliver all across Melbourne. So that's really the main part of what we do. Like we are based in our warehouse in Epping that you can come visit, but mostly deliveries all around Melbourne. Yeah.
Excellent. So give us a couple of examples of the kinds of meals or recipes that you've concocted.
Well, there's actually 10 different meals on the ready to raw menu. So that's on purpose. I think it's really nice. Well, I mean, it's necessary to feed a dog variety of foods, but it also means that there's 10 different meals that a dog can eat for dogs that get bored, or anyone would get bored eating the exact same thing every day.
Oh yeah.
So there's 10 different meals. We have, like, for example, fancy duck mix, which is a duck only novel protein mix. We've got our Nourish and Thrive, which has a bunch of different stuff. We have something for every dog, really.
Excellent. And those are balanced and pre-made, so they're also including different things like fruits and vegetables and all of that good stuff.
Absolutely. Yeah, protein, offal, veg, bone, berries, nuts and seeds. And we also sell what I call mix-ins, which is kind of all those things separately for people that want to DIY their own dog's food, but have a balanced diet. We've got sort of everything you need to offer a balanced diet, including all the little bits and pieces that, no one wants to spend time food prepping, soaking nuts and seeds, blitzing everything up. So our seed me mix, for example, we kind of do all the hard work for you, and you can just get your nuts and seeds, your traffic lights, and you're getting this beautiful balanced diet with a variety of different ingredients to be able to fresh feed your dog.
That's so good, and it's essentially ready to go. You can just come and grab it, or you can get it delivered, and you really don't have to do anything.
No, if you want to buy the meals, you don't have to do anything. Just defrost it and serve. It's, some people like the convenience of that. Other people like to prep their own dog's food. But I find it's funny. People are like, yeah, I'm going to DIY prep my own dog's food. And they do it once and they're like, yeah, I never want to do that again.
No,
And then they just buy the pre-made.
it's a lot easier if you can get it.
Absolutely.
Excellent. So, what kind of tips would you give to dog mums who aren't feeding raw or fresh at the moment, but are wanting to get started? Are there some things that they can start adding to the bowl now? What do you normally recommend to your customers who haven't done it before?
Absolutely. I think there's a lot of fear around, going full raw, and people worry about going full raw and not giving a balanced diet, but you don't have to go full raw. Like, obviously, that's awesome if you can and want to, but even if you feed your dog kibble or whatever you feed them, there are so many things that you can add to their diet that they get benefits of fresh feeding. Like, even if you just introduce raw meaty bones or blitzed up green veg like our super greens, or you add some berries, for example, like there are so many, I say human foods that are perfectly good for dogs, that are great for dogs. And you can be adding a little bit of fresh food here and there to their diet without having to go full raw and be worried about balance too much. Even things like sardines or mussels or oysters or different seafood or fish, or there are so many different little bits and pieces. And if you're doing that, even if you're just giving your dog your own leftover vegetables or something from dinner, they're going to be getting the benefits of some fresh food in their diet, without you having to, I guess, be fearful about, am I giving them a balanced diet?
Absolutely, and I think that's what it's all about. I mean, a lot of people are fearful. They don't know that they are going to be able to do it properly. They don't know that it's going to be balanced. There's also a lot of talk on the internet here and there about is it safe? Is there an issue with bacteria? All of these sorts of things, and a lot of confusing information. So I think that's probably the best way to start. Is you start with a little bit, keep feeding your normal diet, but maybe replace a little bit of the kibble with some sardines, with some eggs, fresh meaty bones,
Yeah.
even a little bit of human grade mince, and just sort of experiment with it and build up slowly. And of course, see what works for your dog. They're all completely different. What works for one is not going to work with the next one, even if they're blood relatives. They're all completely different. I know that with my dogs as well. They've all got their favourites. They've all got things that they are happy with and their body is happy with, and then other things that will set them off. It's trying a few different things, giving people ideas about what they might like to try, and just starting, really.
Yeah, exactly. I mean, there's so much you can do. Even when you go to the supermarket, there's like the yellow sticker section where they might have like chicken giblets or lamb liver or heart or something like that. So, you could
Exactly.
grab something special and chop up a little bit of liver and pop it in with their kibble and crack an egg. And, there you go.
Mhm.
Your dog's gotten all this nice fresh nutrients in that meal, and you don't have to say a raw feed, but you are fresh feeding if you're doing that.
Well, that's exactly right. And I mean, I know that budget is a concern for a lot of people as well, but there are ways that you can get around that by choosing things that are value for money. I mean, a tin of sardines in spring water is still usually less than $1 in most places. And if you've got a teeny weeny dog, they don't need that whole can. That will probably last them a week or more.
Yeah,
Eggs, well, maybe not the cheapest at the moment, but if you happen to have chooks or you have a neighbour who's got chooks, you can give them a fresh egg a
yeah,
few times a week.
yeah,
Fruit and veg, I mean, you certainly want to look out for specials in the meat department, but look out for the stickered markdown products in the fruit and veg department as well. I will often choose what I add to their meals based on what's on special or what's marked down that particular week or that particular fortnight, and find a way to integrate that. Throw it in a chopper or throw it in a food processor. If you're not going to be able to feed all of it straight away while it's fresh, blitz it, throw it in an ice cube tray
yeah.
and freeze it, and pop one each night into their meal. There are some easy ways to get around these things that are also cost effective.
Absolutely. And I think never underestimate like your little local butcher,
Hmm.
even if you're not in a metropolitan city or whatever, the local butcher, like go and have a chat to them. Often they'll chuck you a bag of bones for $2 that they weren't going to use. They might have some chicken necks or, who knows, a pig's foot to chew on. If you're offering variety, that's the aim of the game. So yeah, it's worth just having a good relationship with your local butcher, sussing out what's at the supermarket. And yeah, you can sort of fresh feed in a really cost effective way and be offering a really great variety to your dog of proteins and different things.
Absolutely. And your dog will worship the ground you walk on. If they're food
Yeah,
motivated like mine, because I've got retrievers, they think it's Christmas. They're like, oh my God, you're the best mum ever. They love it.
yeah, exactly. I think one of the things people notice when they do sort of transition to a raw diet, and I hear this a lot from my customers, is just how happy their dogs are at mealtime. They get the pitter patter of the little feet. They're
What are we going to
excited for
get
their food.
tonight?
Yeah, and how beautiful is that to have your dog so happy around their meals and what they're eating, and they're being nourished with their food.
Absolutely. Absolutely. Love it. Love it. If there's one last piece of advice you could leave people with, what's the first thing that comes to mind?
First thing that comes to mind is raw meaty bones. I think don't underestimate just how good raw meaty bones are for not just for dental health. Well, that's the main thing, but even just for enrichment for your dog. And yeah, the benefits of regularly chewing on a raw meaty bone. Raw meaty bones are mostly cheap. So such an easy change to make, introducing raw meaty bones and having your dog chew on raw meaty bones regularly. nothing better for their long-term dental health and really good for them mentally as well. So I think that's one really easy takeaway and one good thing that everybody can really start doing.
Absolutely. My guys live for their bones. I try and give them as much variety as I can. So we do everything from chicken frames to roux ribs to roux legs to beef marrow to you name it. And it keeps them happy. It keeps them busy. They're just laying down having a sunbake and a chill while they're having a chew, and they think it's great.
Yeah, exactly. And dogs, when they're like really getting into chewing a bone and they do that repetitive chewing motion, you actually sort of see their like third eyelid come over and they go into a bit of a Zen-like state. So it's actually like it's a really nice thing that your dog. It's the most natural thing for them to chew on a bone. They love it and it's good for them. I think most dogs should definitely be regularly chewing raw meaty bones.
Excellent, excellent. Well, thank you so much for coming on. It's been so great chatting to you, and we'd love to see you again and talk more.
Absolutely. We could talk for hours, really, couldn't we?
I reckon we probably could. I know I could, and I think you could too.
Absolutely. There's a lot to say. Let's do it again.
Awesome. Sounds great to me. That's a plan. Thanks for tuning in for the podcast. If you enjoyed this episode, please remember to like, subscribe, and share. Say hi to your dog for me.